I am Savannah. I'm from the Pregnancy Center. I've been serving at the Pregnancy Center in Toledo for 10 years. And I'm really struck by, I hope that we never lose sight of how important what just happened was. Baptism is a beautiful, beautiful display of what God has done in our lives as an outward show. And it's interesting because in the Bible, Nicodemus and Jesus are having this conversation, and Jesus says, Nicodemus, you have to be born again. And it was this radical concept that Nicodemus was trying to wrap his mind around, like, how does one become born again? And baptism is a sign, and it's a wonder, and it's a demonstration for those of us who have been born again. But as I was sitting here and I was watching this, I was thinking about the reality of, but we also have to be born. Like, we have to be born in order for us to be born again. And how many of you guys know that Tuesday is a pretty big day in our nation? Yeah. Some of you guys are like, I don't know what's happening on Tuesday. I'll let you in on a secret. Some of you guys just don't like raising your hand in church. You're like, I wish people would stop doing that. So Tuesday is election day. Tuesday is election day. And I want, first, before we dive into this conversation, I want to take a moment and acknowledge how awesome it is to live in a country where we get to participate in election day. Like, that's so awesome. And I'm really blessed that I grew up in a home as a millennial that really instilled in me what an honor it is to be able to walk in and cast my ballot and to exercise my right to vote. And we know that men and women have sacrificed greatly. I want to say thank you to those of you who have served in the military, and some that have given their lives in order for us to be able to walk in and to cast your ballot. And so I want to encourage you that no matter what your Tuesday looks like, to make sure that you take time, if you haven't already done it, that you take time to go and vote, because not everybody in our world has this opportunity. And we're blessed to live in a country that gives us the opportunity to use the ballot and to use our voice and to vote. And I know that many of you also know that there is a pretty gnarly proposition that is on the Michigan ballot on Tuesday, and it's Proposition 3. And I know you guys have probably heard a lot about this. There's a lot of conversation that's going on. But I think this morning that I can bring some really unique perspective. Unfortunately, there are some voices in all of this that either aren't being heard or aren't being communicated. And I want to share my own perspective. And I have the honor to be able to share some stories of some men and women whose voices aren't being heard. And humbly, I think the team at the Pregnancy Center, whom I represent, that we have a perspective on this issue because of what we see every single day. That sometimes it's hard because lots of people have lots of opinions on a lot of things that they don't do every single day. And for us at the Pregnancy Center, this isn't a hobby. This isn't something that we get to tweet a tweet and walk away from. For us, this is our every single day. That every single day we sit with men and women who are contemplating making an abortion decision. We sit with men and women who have made abortion decisions. And so I want to add to the knowledge that you've already gotten by sharing some testimonies and some stories of people that I think will be impactful. I'm not here to tell you how to vote. You all look very beautiful today, and I'm assuming you're all very, very intelligent. What I do want to encourage you is that you stand on your biblical convictions, that this idea that somehow the sacred and the secular is separate is inaccurate. That as believers, when we say yes to Jesus, we're not just saying yes to his saviorship, which Thank you, Jesus, for your saviorship. We can't save ourselves. And the fact that Jesus went to the cross and died for us and rose 3 days later and gave us the dunamis power to live holy before him, we're so thankful for that. But it also says that we submit to his lordship. We don't want to talk about that all the time. We love to talk about his saviorship, but the Bible is clear that when we say yes to God, we're also saying yes to Jesus' lordship. And what that means is that his ways are higher than our ways, but he's right. And the Bible has a lot to say about this issue, and many of us have settled on Psalm 139. We know this, but I want to share something with you about Psalm 139 that I don't hear talked about often. Psalm 139 talks about our frames being hidden in the secret place. It's interesting because the word frame in Greek that's used in the Bible is fetus, so when people are like, well, it's just a fetus. Yes, the Bible addresses that as a fetus. But here's the thing, is that it says that our bodies, our frames, were being made in the secret place. But what does it say right after that? And it says that every day was laid out for us before one of them came to be. And so as believers who stand on the Bible as truth, there's a two-part reality there, that abortion is not just the destruction of a physical frame, a human body frame. It's also the destruction of an entire life. Every day before the foundation of the world. And so I want to encourage you when you walk in that you keep that in mind. I am privileged every day over the last 10 years that I get to sit and hear some incredible stories. And just this last week, I had the opportunity to sit with a young woman. She's in her master's program at the University of Toledo. Brilliant, bright young woman. And she was in Columbus, attending a college in Columbus, and she became pregnant. And this beautiful, bright young woman had an abortion scheduled. And before she did that, she found herself in a pregnancy center in Columbus. And she chose to carry and parent her son. And I got to see beautiful pictures of this vibrant little boy. And she sat across from me. She's doing a project at the University of Toledo and wanted to do it about the pregnancy center. And I said, why the pregnancy center? And she said, the pregnancy center in Columbus saved my son's life. And they saved my life. That I was going to make a decision that I didn't realize then, but would have destroyed me for the rest of my life. And see, here is the irony, is that we hear this conversation about choice and about empowering women. But here is a brilliant young woman that is an excellent mother, and she's pursuing her dreams. See, the very notion of abortion is so anti-female because it says that we can't be mothers and pursue our dreams. And that's a lie from the pit of hell. Women are absolutely capable of being mothers and pursuing their dreams. They can do both. That's true female empowerment. And I want to say here that motherhood is not a dirty word. Being a mother is not a curse. Being a mother is one of the holiest, most beautiful calls. And so even if mothering looks like staying in the home and raising your children, that is a beautiful, holy call. It's a beautiful and holy call. And here we see this beautiful example. I had another opportunity. I was golfing this summer. Not well. I didn't say well. I just said golfing. And I had the opportunity to start chatting with this older gentleman, and he asked where I worked. And I always kind of have to like take a deep breath because no one's like prepared for that. Like when I get on a plane and someone's like, oh, what do you do for work? I'm like, oh, I don't know if you're ready for that because everybody has an opinion. So I'm talking to him, and he asks me where I work, and I tell him, and he immediately gets tears in his eyes. And I say, yeah, tell me what's up. And he's like, you saved the life of my granddaughter. I was like, man, tell me more. And he's like, my daughter was going to have an abortion, and we brought her to the pregnancy center, and she had an ultrasound there, and she chose to carry and parent That beautiful young girl is now in high school, and she's got huge dreams. And so that's what I talk about when we talk about the destruction of not just a physical frame, but a life. Here is a young woman whose life was going to be snuffed out, and it wasn't. And now she has plans and purposes, and she's going to go to college, and she has a whole bright future ahead of her that would not have existed. But here's the thing. We can walk in on Tuesday and we can cast our ballot, and some of us will allow that to be the end of our pro-life conviction. And I want to be very clear that as the church, that can't be us. Woe to us if that is the end of where we walk. See, the reality is that women are facing very difficult challenges. The women who walk into the pregnancy center, some of them are in domestic violence situations. Some of them are in addiction. Some of them have barriers to care. Some of them have chasms between life and life abundantly. And that is where the church steps in. That we should be stepping in to be that friendly face when she walks into the pregnancy center. We should be stepping in to meet those material needs, whether it's diapers or strollers or car seats. We should be the ones that are sitting with her as she journeys out of addiction into motherhood and mentoring her. We should be the ones that are walking with those fathers and teaching those dads who never had a dad for themselves what it means to be a father. Tuesday cannot be the end. I also have the privilege at the pregnancy center of being a part of a very, very special ministry called The Haven. I'm going to allow the stories to be told for themselves, but the thing about The Haven, about 2 years into my time at the pregnancy center, I started doing after-abortion care, which is what is located inside of The Haven. And after-abortion care is simply this, that we acknowledge that God didn't throw his hands up in the air and walk away when men and women choose abortion. That the same God that stands ready to give women hope before they make that decision, that he stands equally at the end of that decision and says, I love you and I still have a hope and a plan and a purpose for you, that there's healing and reconciliation. And historically, we have not done well with that. We look at the unborn life and we see that as the life, but a true biblical conviction on the life issue says that mother and that father's life, that they're equally as valuable, that they're equally made in the image of God. And so we have the privilege over at The Haven walking with men and women who have made an abortion decision. And it's been beautiful to see God bring hope and reconciliation back into these men and women's lives. But when we opened up The Haven, it's uniquely situated. The Haven is next door to the abortion facility in Toledo. And we were so confident that God had called us to this location. We sit right at the back door of the abortion facility, and we believed wholeheartedly that God was the same God at the back door of the abortion facility as he was at the front door, that he was just as good and just as kind and just as merciful. But one day when we were over there, God whispered to me, and it changed my life forever. He said, Savannah, I brought you here to teach you how to love your neighbor as yourself. And I was like, nope, you brought me here to do after-abortion care. And again, he said, Savannah, I brought you here to teach you how to love your neighbor as yourself. And what I realized in that moment through the grace of Jesus is that those that work in the abortion industry, God loves them, and they're just as valuable as the unborn child, as the mother, as the father. Those that vote differently than we do, those that think differently, that worship differently. And friends, our gospel-centeredness, our pro-life biblical conviction falls flat if we don't look around and see every single human being as created in the image of God, that it doesn't end with the unborn child, that there is no end to that every person deserves the honor and dignity. And I want to say, as we head into the most divisive week of the year, that our words matter. I get it. I understand. I know many of you are frustrated and fired up. But our words matter. The way that we carry ourselves matter, especially for those of us who hold to the title of Christian, that hold to the values of Jesus Christ. That the way that you conduct yourself on the internet, it matters. The way that we conduct ourselves to neighbors matters. And ultimately, if we were right on our conviction, but we close the door of heaven to people, what good have we done? So I encourage you, walk through the doors and vote with your conscience. Vote according to your values, because Tuesday has implications far beyond what you're hearing. Far beyond what you're hearing. So vote with your conviction, but also walk out with your conviction that as a Christian, that we are solely focused on the gospel. And the gospel is about this. It's about people. It's about people. That people infinitely matter to God, that they infinitely matter to Jesus, so much so that Jesus unrobed himself of glory, brought himself to the earth and walked as a human being and suffered. And I pray that we don't lose sight of that, that even in the midst of all that's going on, that we don't lose sight of that. I told you that I'm going to let some of my friends tell their story. We have a video that you guys are going to watch. The video is testimonies of women who and men who have walked through our services over at the Haven. And I want you to hear their story. Their story is all about men and women who have received the healing and redemptive grace of Jesus Christ. And I want to say, if that's you, if you're sitting in this room and you have walked through an abortion, I want to tell you that God loves you. And there is no mistake that we can make. There is no place that we can set ourselves that is outside of his grace and his redemption. And if this is your story, we would be honored to walk with you. In the bathrooms after service, there are some brochures about the services that we provide over at the Haven. And in first service, we already were able to connect with a handful of people from this church that are ready to start their healing journey in our after-abortion care program. And so we would be honored again to walk with you. Church, thank you for allowing me to come and be with you this morning. After the service, I will be out on the table of the lobby, happy to answer questions. I know there's a lot going through people's mind. There's no question that's off limit, so come see me. I'd love to chat with you. Thank you.
I was 25 years old, engaged to be married, and a few weeks before the wedding, I found out that I was pregnant. Honestly, I was a little embarrassed that I was pregnant before I got married.
Well, when I was 16 years old, I got pregnant, sophomore in high school, and the guy I got pregnant with, he was a senior. To be honest, I wasn't happy, but I wasn't scared that I was pregnant because our family was so dysfunctional. I felt like this is someone who I could love and who would love me back unconditionally.
20 years old, I graduated from tech school, got my first job down in Columbus. And my girlfriend at the time, and she wanted to move down there, move in with me, and I was all for that. About maybe 2 months later, we found out we were pregnant.
I was 26 when I found out that I was pregnant. I was with someone that I thought was the love of my life. I remember telling my boyfriend at the time that I was pregnant, and I didn't get the reaction that I had always hoped for.
My husband and I made the appointment, and we went ahead with the procedure.
I told my sister that I was pregnant after finding out, and she told my mother for me. And my mother had made an appointment for me to have an abortion, and I just thought she was waking me up to go to school.
When we found out we were pregnant, I was extremely scared. I was frightened, and a lot of that had to do with a situation that had taken place just a couple months before that with my parents. I really, really feared what was going to happen if I had to tell them. So I thought, the option is to abort the child. She did not want to do that. That was not her choice at all.
I was just completely scared. I didn't think that I was in the right place to be pregnant or that I had the support. I guess everything was pretty much unknown to me, and that was terrifying. So I decided to make the choice to schedule an abortion.
I suffered from a lot of depression and sadness. I just learned to hide my emotions and suppress my feelings. I didn't talk to anybody about it, so it was just me alone in this dark sadness.
Just the bitterness that I had towards my mother for years and years and years.
There were so many things during that time that I fell into, addictions, a marriage that almost fell apart on a couple different occasions from choices I made.
I kind of just stuffed all of the emotions and kept going through like my daily activities like nothing ever happened. That kind of came to like haunt me later on, years down the road, and actually started using drugs.
I had no idea where all this pain, where it was coming from. Still not understanding that like this is all related to the abortion. That was like the beginning of like, okay, I need some help. And like the spring of the following year in 2016 is when I went to Sweet Endings. And that's when I heard about this abortion recovery.
I'll never forget, I was coming home from work, was going down Anthony Wayne Trail and saw a billboard that said pregnant and scared. I pulled over, I literally pulled over 3 lanes and just sobbed. And I just said, Lord, I don't know what you want me to do with this, but here I am.
My wife, who was actually my girlfriend back then, we'd been married for over 30 years, so God's been good in that. But she went to the retreat with the Haven, and she thought it would certainly be a good idea for me, and I'm so glad I did.
I ended up telling a friend of mine at work what had happened with me, and she had actually been through similar things as I had, and she actually led me to the Haven.
After going through abortion recovery, the guilt and the shame that I felt, that I carried for so long, just left me. You know, I feel free. The heavy burden of it is gone.
Walking through abortion recovery was the best thing that I ever did in my life. I did not realize all of the pain that was hidden, all of the bitterness, all of the unforgiveness.
A lot of healing and a lot of shame was released. I had guilt, I had shame, I had grief that I was able to, take to the cross and, see God's forgiveness and all of that.
Having walked through abortion recovery, now I feel empowered to share my story, to help other women, to just spread the faith that I have and the hope that I have.
If you're part of the 1 in 3, healing is available, and it's something that you just can't explain, just the freedom that you feel, and you don't have to live with this burden.
Just do it. Just go through it. You may be scared. You may be scared of opening up doors that have been closed for years, of revealing emotions that you're afraid to tap into, but you have to do it, because that's God's way of leading you to healing.
Getting the healing will change your life. It will bring you peace. It will bring you comfort. It will take the weight of the world off your shoulders. It will take grief that you never knew you had and open that up. It'll remove shame.
If you're part of the 1 in 3 like me, I want to tell you that abortion isn't your life story, that you're not alone, and that there's hope.